Thank you, Joanne, and good morning to you all, and many thanks to the IHF for providing me with the platform to tell you about not one but two transformational projects I've been or am involved in right now. And forgive me if I sound like I have either a split personality or a speak with a forked tongue, but it really is only a few weeks ago that I was very proudly CEO of Titanic Belfast since its inception and opening, before I move over to the rather wild side of life, to be equally proud to be the CEO of Westport House and Estate and Hotel Westport, both of which are part of a very exciting 10-year development plan, of which more later. The title of the topic is Destination Innovation, and I hope that my story fits that bill accurately. And to tee that concept up, let's pose the question, looking first at Belfast in the year 2000. Where peace was at a very fragile point in its journey, although isn't that the same every year? He jokes, having moved safely across the border that doesn't really exist but does, dependent on the day of the week. But who would have thought that in 2017 two things would have happened? Firstly, Belfast has probably become the safest city in Europe to visit. And secondly, who would have thought that the story of a ship that sank on its first journey would provide the platform and the impetus for a fledgling tourism industry to grow so much and provide an experience that made it in 2017 the world's leading tourist attraction. You could suggest that even Paddy Power wouldn't have taken those two bets on. But they did, and they've achieved amazing things as both a city and as an attraction. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that journey and what were the really important aspects on it that provided that impetus for growth and change in customer behaviour. And then I'll move on, as I have done, to the Mayo and Westport experience. In seeking to define the factors that build up your proposition, as it were, in my experience are threefold. Firstly, the story or the narrative, how we position the product in our guests' or our visitors' mind's eyes, how it looks against every other provider. What gives you that uniqueness, that edge? Secondly, the brand itself, which as we all know is not the logo on the headed paper or on the staff uniforms, but much more as the collective assets, the culture of how we tell the story and how we represent it and how that matches the experience. That was a very influential stage in positioning Titanic Belfast as a major tourism brand. And thirdly is the experience itself, which is very much the emotional connection the visitor has in the attraction or the hotel or even the airport. It's how our teams build the lasting impressions and provide that conscious and subconscious reminders to them as to how they felt and give them that call to action to go and return. So over to Titanic Belfast, which opened in March 2012, and now is nearing 5 million visitors through its doors. It's a highly interactive, multi-layered visitor attraction that tells the story not only of the magnificent liner and its tragic destiny and its passengers and crew aboard her, but also that of the city at the time, a world leader in shipbuilding and engineering and manufacturing, with the building being on the very site where Titanic was designed, where it was built, launched and provided that sense of real authenticity which is essential in visitor attractions these days. The vision on which the project was positioned was the spirit that built Titanic is reborn in a world-class destination, offering all aspects and all visitors a unique, rich and authentic experience. So we set ourselves some very, very high targets in that respect. Now, whilst this is an introductory slide, I do love this image with the juxtapositioning of the Harland and Wolff red brick administration offices, and now also operating as the 120 bedroom 4-star Titanic Hotel Belfast boutique hotel as of a few months ago. And then you have the shining Titanic Belfast building with a contemporary P&O ferry in the background, so bringing together all the elements of heritage, urban regeneration and contemporary maritime transport into one image. That just gives you a quick snapshot as to where Titanic Belfast sits and how you have to compete to find your own space in a very busy market, both nationally but also very locally. But who are Titanic Belfast? I thought it would be useful to give you a little bit of background as to who the company is and where they came from. Whilst the Titanic Foundation charity are the owners of the building, Titanic Belfast Limited was a company formed for the purpose and the privilege of operating the building as a visitor attraction engaged on a 25-year management contract. Its parent company is actually a Dublin-based one called Harcourt, who are both property developers and operators with interests as diverse as shopping centres and hotels, including ones in Antigua, Donegal, Liverpool and Belfast. They also provided the construction element of the project. Another sister company to the Titanic Quarter is the overall development company for the area, which was originally known as Queen's Island. The common thread, though, is a gentleman called Pat Doherty, who owns all the companies and is the single stakeholder and whose wider vision Titanic Quarter is. The relationship with the immediate external environment is also key to its success, with a responsibility to try and help animate the spaces and the public realm around it on the plaza and the slipways area with activities and public events. I'm often asked who my management team were, and I find this question interesting and challenging in terms of innovation. Whilst I don't come to any earth-shattering conclusions from how we came about, I feel a great sense of pride, because before we opened on the 31st of March 2012, not one single member of our management team, executive or middle management, had any experience at all of operating a visitor attraction or indeed a museum. And I actually think that was a strength at the time, bringing no preconceived ideas as to how we should operate. Notwithstanding that, we did have bags of experience in customer service, operating conference centres, concert halls, hotels, high street retail, but not visitor attractions. But suffice to say, we learned very quickly and adapted our skill sets appropriately. Now, just before I show you a short video to put the project into more context, I wanted to say something about Titanic and its relationship to dark tourism, which is probably a key driver as to why Titanic Belfast exists. Some have called us, Titanic Belfast, an example of dark tourism and fascination with the dead. Now, whilst this may be true in part for some visitors, it is part of the cultural fabric of Belfast that will be forever entwined with Titanic, and which has provided that vision for the future. From the moment that tragedy happened and the story began, its journey into history, the populist heritage industry found new ways of commemorating and, yes, commercialising the event. What is clear, though, is that the manifestation of Titanic Belfast reconnects visitors effectively with the past and helps the memories of those who were involved remain alive in Belfast. Titanic Belfast, and indeed other Titanic-related events and exhibitions, helps to tell the social history of the city, whilst recognising that the ship itself is full of stories of human error, the strength of force that Mother Nature is, as well as telling stories of heroism, and indeed others that in fact are less so. If it is dark tourism, it helps to shine the light on a tragic event that clearly still resounds with not only the people of Belfast, but is also the wider world, which is evidenced by the increasing number of international visitors making their way to the city and the attraction. And Titanic Belfast is, I'm reliably informed, the second most recognisable brand in the world after Coca-Cola. So even at that level, it provided us with a great platform to talk about the attraction in international markets. But it is against this background that it tries to tread that difficult balance between celebrating, commemorating and indeed commercialism. The project was also intended to place Belfast very firmly on the international tourist map, positioning the city in a very positive way, providing a marketing platform to help persuade national and international visitors the benefit of making that trip to the home of Titanic. It was also intended, and is doing so effectively, to act as the catalyst for the urban regeneration of the Titanic Quarter, but also the city of Belfast as a whole. It was also important that from an operating model perspective, that Titanic Belfast should be a self-sustaining business financially. And although it was a public-private sector partnership in terms of providing the capital funding to create the project, it should receive absolutely no ongoing public sector support funding, which it doesn't for its day-to-day operation even now. We're therefore reliant on generating significant monies from our business to not only be commercially viable, but also to generate additional monies to reinvest back into the project year on year, of which I'll say a little bit more later. And lastly, critical for its success was to set a new standard in customer experience in Northern Ireland, to be that world class. And whilst others will be the judge of that, we were obviously heartened to receive many plaudits and awards in this area, most recently, of course, the WTA award, which not only gained us great profile for our industry internationally, but also was a significant factor in us raising our business by 20% last year since we got it. In terms of this stage, I wanted to touch on our own rules of engagement in terms of our approach to gallery content and customer interaction, because I think that's very important. Because we're the current day purveyors of the Titanic story, we have to ensure that the content is both authentic and accurate, because we cover a story that a whole lot of people either have the same or more knowledge, in fact, than we have, or at least believe that they do, because the general story of Titanic has been around for over 100 years. However, in doing so, we still have to act with absolute integrity in the way that we tell the story of the shipyard, the ship, and the stories of those involved. Whilst the process is one of engagement, both inside and outside the building and the galleries, the basis of the premise of the exhibition is one of storytelling, and we have a huge responsibility to tell it accurately and effectively. It is also our intention to provide a stimulus or an encouragement for the visitor to go and find out more about the story of the maritime heritage of the city and the role that Harland and Wolff, the White Star Line, Cunard and the Titanic all had within it. It's a learning platform for those that wish to look further, either within Belfast, Titanic Quarter, or indeed other cities within the story, including that of Cove. In terms of engagement, all of our frontline staff or crew are an absolutely critical factor in the success of the project and the business. We position ourselves not as a visitor attraction, certainly within a UK market rather than a traditional museum. And I think so because not only is our approach within the content very interactive and less artifacts-based, but we also see our staff as having a very much proactive role in assisting visitors with interpreting the content of the galleries. They're charged with being the on-site purveyors of the story, and we spend a significant amount of time in their recruitment and their training with the underlying mantra of recruiting attitude first and supporting them with skills development afterwards. They act almost as the walking audio guide, signposting when needed the visitor's individual journey through the story and adding real value to the respective experiences. In terms of customer research, we utilise a combination of both solicited and unsolicited feedback from visitors through visitor satisfaction surveys, both our own commissioned ones and also those commissioned by the tourism agencies of Tourism Ireland, Tourism NI, and also part of our participation in the UK Association of Leading Visitor Attractions. We monitor overall experience, crew performance, value for money, general housekeeping standards, and often departmental specific areas. We also utilise the surveys to measure behavioural attitudes within our frontline staff, finding out how friendly, enthusiastic, professional, or helpful they may be, to name a few. This also enables us to independently monitor how both individuals and teams are working so that we can support them appropriately or flag up any areas of concern. We also, probably quite relatively uniquely, we utilise a visual mystery shopper on 6 times a year, which provides us with a written report and appropriate footage to support it. So it's a means of monitoring that is not subjective and is very difficult to argue with the evidence and the outcomes. In terms of our key market segments, we've been open nearly 6 years and are hurtling towards that 5 millionth visitor, but I thought it would be useful to tell you a little about who our visitors are. And we have 5 core market segments. The first is our domestic leisure visitor, which has a wide-ranging base, as you might imagine, and this cuts right across both Northern Ireland and the Republic, the latter being a very key market for Titanic Belfast in itself and the residents, but also as an access point for the international out-of-state visitor. Dublin wasn't something to be scared of, it was something to be embraced because it was a gateway. The out-of-state covers those coming from the burgeoning cruise ship industry, about 92 this last year, with some 3,000 potential visitors on each of them, and the group travel market, which currently provides over 120,000 visitors, and the city break market. Under the same 2 categories are also events, whether they're national or international conferences, to local dinners, charity events, meetings, and even, yes, weddings. Everybody is still apparently is looking to create that Leo and Kate moment on the staircase. Lastly is the education sector, as mentioned previously, covering not only schools but higher education, youth groups and language schools both from north and south of the border. Where do our visitors actually live? This slide shows you that this year the Republic of Ireland provides 25% of the market share and England 16% of the share, a figure that has been steadily rising since opening in 2012. In terms of the domestic audience, whilst the Northern Ireland market has diminished over the years, from a point at which it matched the ROI share, it still provides 14% of the total visitor numbers. And whilst we expect this in any case, it is important because it means that we need to generate greater numbers of out-of-state visitors to ensure the financial sustainability of the project, which thankfully is happening. Our growth markets are now the United States and Canada, up to about 16% together overall now, plus the European states, the new emerging markets of the Far East, and Australia. And good growth is also seen from the Netherlands, where visitor numbers have almost doubled again last year, and Poland, both of them facilitated by an increase in direct flights and capacity, showing that relationship between access points and business. And I think it's important, given the makeup of the visitor, that we work hard and in partnership with the state and cities tourism agencies, Tourism Ireland, Tourism NI, and Visit Belfast, persuading them to continue using Titanic Belfast as the draw to attract further levels of new tourists to the island of Ireland. And if you excuse the pun, we all say a rising tide lifts all ships. Had to put that one in, sorry. In terms of our marketing strategy, our growing international visitor demographic reflects our strategic shift from a domestic to a more internationally focused one over the past few years. And although the domestic market is important to us, we recognise the long-term growth has to be the international markets. Using key messages such as the home of Titanic and the World Travel Award accolade, we target visitors at key touch points on their journey, from the research and the planning stage in their home country to their journey, arrival in Ireland, and throughout their stay when they're here. At their research and planning stage in their home market, this is achieved through working strategically with the key tourism agencies, through partnership activity, cooperative campaigns, trade shows and sales missions, as well as our own PR and digital activity, which I'll talk a little bit more shortly. We then target them on their journey through an enhanced presence at ports of entry, including the airports in the north and the south, in-flight magazines, presence in all the hotels and tourist information centres in Dublin and across Northern Ireland, and again through targeted digital activity, ensuring Titanic Belfast is top of their mind as a must-do activity when they arrive in the city. And of course we don't ignore our domestic NI market, but we work with them in order to try and create additional seasonal products to engage them in the low seasons. I mentioned digital marketing briefly, and I just wanted to elaborate on this a little bit further. This is an area we've increased our focus and activity quite significantly over the last 2 years. The reason for that is we're able to extend our reach into the international markets more cost effectively. We can be very reactive and change our messaging in key markets as required. And most of all, and this is particularly attractive to me and any accountants in the room, we can easily measure our return and see our return on investment, as they're all very, very measurable. And we're constantly evolving our digital strategy as the digital environment changes constantly, and we can never afford to sit still. And key areas that we focus on are using social media commercially to drive ticket sales while still keeping the balance with historical and engaging content. We redeveloped our website to enhance the visitor journey and drive online ticket sales. We drive visitors to the website across all of our messaging, both offline and online, which has resulted in a 35% increase in our online transactions this year. And we've also made significant investment in pay-per-click activity in key markets, which again drives visitors to the website to book tickets, but the pay-per-click activity also delivers strong brand awareness for Titanic Belfast internationally, and that underpins all of our other activity, as well as that of the tourism agencies. If you do go to Titanic Belfast, you'll note that going into the building that the atrium ground floor level is very much a set of commercial spaces, which is important for us, whilst obviously also serving to set the scene for the main gallery experience, for its industrial feel of the area. But there is a need for the building to be commercially viable, and so this space sets up the business opportunities to allow us to do that. Often visitor attractions are put together, but they forget that actually they need to be viable as well, and they miss the commercial opportunity. It's a business model that is now built on 3 core legs of revenue generation. The first is the main driver of everything else, operating the business as a visitor attraction, providing the main reason for people to do that, and we will see nearly 750,000 people do just that this year. And whilst we don't measure throughput currently in the public spaces around the building, probably taking that into account when people are using the catering outlets for tea and coffee or shop for a unique Titanic gift, you're probably heading much more towards the million visitor mark, and this is increasingly the case. The revenue from the catering outlets of a bistro and a cafe, the 2 very clearly different offerings now after a redevelopment, and when combined with the revenue generated by the conference and hospitality events hosted in our 3 main function suites, with over 300 events programmed each year, provides a second economic leg. The third is the revenue generated by our Titanic store, which provides 20% of all of our revenue on the basis of supplying and presenting for visitors to buy unique retail offerings that they can't get anywhere else in the world, and our target is to provide 60% of all stock in this way. We also have a temporary gallery space which we use to host both commercial and community exhibitions, all which add both numbers and value to our performance. In terms of providing value for money for the economy and generating a return on investment for the stakeholders, which is really important, an appraisal after our first 5 years trading indicated a contribution into the local economy from direct and indirect spend of nearly 160 million. As they say at these times, do the maths. It's a great return in anybody's book for the city and also for the operating company. The reasons to why we've been so successful in 2017, it's been a great year for us so far, but we do try and understand actually when both things go wrong and things go right as to why this might be. And I think in this year there's a myriad of reasons, but at a high level I think we've got 5 years advocacy and profile, the positive PR around the World Travel Award, the increasing strength of the Belfast brand, the favourable exchange rate. Somebody is actually doing well out of the exchange rate. Belfast being perceived as a safe city to visit. Continued investment in attending sales missions and trade shows. I know Niall talks about that often, but it's absolutely the case. We've been out for the last 5 years on most of the trade missions, and we're seeing great returns from that investment. Continued investment also back into the product too, which is really important. And obviously our great staff who provide fantastic and excellent customer service. We've also seen great growth in the group tour and group and cruise ship business, and sustained marketing campaigns, particularly around the ROI and the doublet markets. Project lessons learned. I think this is sometimes useful for some people in the audience to take away things if your county council or your regions are planning new attractions. At the start of any new project, make sure you employ the right consultants, those that understand and have empathy with the project, as well as having the knowledge and the experience. Create space for me. Don't leave it too late to bring an operator in to influence the outcome as the end user, so it just doesn't become a building design. Create independent challenges to get the right outcome. Set up an expert group depending on what the storyline is. Make sure you have accuracy within that. Check and double check again, because other people will point out the vagaries. Set a date to open. Helps focus the mind. Find an anniversary of something. Titanic with its 100th anniversary, we couldn't afford to miss that, so it was actually very helpful. But leave a bedding in process to allow you to test. Heritage projects, however well you tell the story, we need to supplement that with some levels of authenticity and artifacts, because there is a sense of expectation from the public. Think bigger, plan for large, and then add some, because you're always going to need gallery space, ancillary services, storage, retail offerings, etc. If you're going to be a successful visitor attraction, you have to try and future-proof it. And other points quickly around reinvesting back into the project, investing in the outside as much as the inside. Titanic Belfast was very successful because it was used as a platform to market the city, and the external area gave us a fantastic lead-in time to do that. And if you compare it to Sydney Opera House and the Guggenheim in Bilbao, I think it gives the city a new identity and gets us talked about overseas. And the only other thing I would say is just hold your nerve whenever you're doing a new attraction. There'll be lots of different challenges like opening a new hotel. Just keep your nerve, focus on what your core product is, and stay true to it. It's a very important thing for all your staff to understand, that everybody, they will feel like everybody in the world is looking at them. They actually are, and they need to be absolutely on top of the game and be confident about what they're trying to achieve. So that was part one. That was then, and this is now. The fast developing and I think very positive story about the positioning of Westport House and Estate, Hotel Westport, and the town of Westport within the success of the Wild Atlantic Way and all things Mayo. Now I know what you're all thinking, particularly after the utterances within the very catchy National Development Plan launched a couple of weeks ago. Surely there is nothing north of Galway to retain a tourist? Well, let me tell you, you need to get out more, because Mayo is going to be the success story of the next 5 years. Yes, not only on the Sam Maguire front, which it will win this year. I'm a dreamer. But in terms of tourism, and which I've been very happy to join its ranks a few weeks ago, through its own tourism bodies, it has recognised that it feels the need to articulate a single identity that reflects all aspects of its story, combining and shaping them to create that single, memorable narrative for the county as a destination. That being wild Mayo, with vast expanses of unspoilt landscapes, authenticity in its heritage, like Westport House, adventure, culture, well-being, nature, food, and amazing people. The strategy will do 3 things: creating experiences, developing authentic visitor experiences, new and existing ones, developing signature pieces, helping to support the required tourism infrastructure. Create a destination in marketing terms and communicating it effectively, creating awareness and appeal. And lastly, working in collaboration, which is a theme which is being developed today really, engaging all stakeholders to ensure support for the wider meaning of the brand. And I have to say, Team Mayo is extremely strong in this respect. So over to Westport itself, such as everyone knows, is officially not only a unique and quality tourism destination with a range of very high quality 3 and 4 star hotels, but it also is the best place officially to live in Ireland. And people, well, since I've moved, have the gall to ask me in Belfast why I have decided to relocate there. I think the next few slides will tell you exactly why I have. It's a heritage town with over 10 hotels, 50 pubs, superb restaurants and boutique shops. So it already has a great reputation and has a place in many a family's nostalgic holiday memories. It has a long-standing spirit of partnership, working together for the common goal of increasing tourism in the town, particularly needed now when 85% of the business is of domestic origin and there is a need to increase its market share from international markets. Whilst it has great support from Mayo County Council and from the tourism agencies in support of the brand and the product of the Wild Atlantic Way and the Greenway, there is no doubt that efforts need to be redoubled to widen further awareness of this unique offering in the town and county. One of the ways this can be achieved is a refreshment and an investment in the product to ensure that it meets the challenging expectations of the contemporary tourists. And this is where our project fits in terms of new product development in the £50 million restoration of Westport House and estate. Westport, having been there a short time and having been there previously, is a very special place. But this is not going to be just another development project. It is an opportunity to present a truly unique offering, a tourism and hospitality heritage piece with a site and a situation unparalleled in Ireland, connecting up a heritage and a historical narrative through the wholly integrated, and that's the key thing, integrated provision of a hotel, a legacy property, a leisure resort, activities and an attraction within the massive potential to change the face of tourism on the west coast of Ireland, creating interest and demand ultimately from both domestic and international visitors and markets. It's a statement of ambition for the area, creating our own legacy piece for generations to come, where both history and commerce have to come together successfully. The house itself is set on a 400-acre estate, uniquely set in the heart of its heritage town. Built in 1730 on the site of a castle belonging to the Parrot Queen, Grace O'Malley, with meticulous thought and consideration, the entire estate was designed to optimise the beautiful views and make the most of the setting by Clew Bay at the foot of Croagh Patrick. It's been open to the public for over 60 years with over 150,000 visitors a year currently. Combined with that, we also own Hotel Westport, a 4-star traditional value family hotel with 129 bedrooms and spa, conference and wedding facilities, and which will celebrate 50 years in business next year. Late last year, Westport House was purchased by the Hughes family, a local family that run a company called Port West, which already operated the hotel, and we're now in the process of developing a master plan for the house and the estate, looking to restore the property, both its Italian and Victorian walled gardens, its unique Chinese room with original wallpaper from the Orient unknown anywhere else in quality in Europe, and to look to commercially develop some of the quality outbuildings of the coach house and farmhouse buildings into dining and retail experiences. The plan is to develop a range of self-catering and glamping accommodation around the estate whilst positioning it as a centre for adventure, for activities, for fitness and well-being. With the potential development of a bespoke wedding offering using both the house, the hotel, together with the original church within the estate, it will provide that combination of a heritage experience, helping the visitor to interpret the history and the story of the house, and quality accommodation that will provide and create a new reason for not only the domestic and international visitor, but also for the business-to-business market, as the refurbishment of the hotel will include the provision of a conference and events venue of around 900 capacity, with the ability to divisible the capacities within that, which when combined with the provision of additional 80 bedrooms, will take it to a very appealing alternative to other established venues across the island of Ireland. And reorientating the front of the hotel to its rightful position to address the river and the estate. As you can see, it is a project that will be in process probably for between 10 to 15 years, and it's mapped out there geographically. But the strength of the offerings, Westport House, Hotel Westport, Westport Town, County Mayo, the Wild Atlantic Way, is their integration and how they work together in the eye of the consumer or the visitor, or the hotel guest, or the adventurer, or indeed the business delegate. All work better when they stand shoulder to shoulder together, presenting an awesome picture and a compelling proposition in tourism terms. Mayo will be the new Wild, and wild is where it's at and where its reputation can be established. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to two stories today. One a new, I say new, 100-year-old brand relaunched into the market, and the other, albeit around an awful lot longer, is still very much in its infancy. So I'd ask you to watch this space. But I'll leave you with two quotes that reflect my own belief that one of the future plans and planks for Irish tourism is the selling of heritage and making it as appealing as we possibly can, extending that growth of the heritage seekers. We have Ireland's most beautiful venue and we intend to make the most of it. So the two quotes that I'm going to leave you are from two individuals working in fashion and music respectively that I think sum up what Titanic Belfast was about, but also the future in Westport House. Alice Templey, a fashion designer, said, "You have to stay true to your heritage. That is what your brand is all about." And then Robbie Robertson, who's a musician, said, "You don't stumble upon your heritage. It's there. It's just waiting to be explored and shared. Everywhere across Ireland, there is heritage that needs to be unearthed and needs to be explored and needs to be shared." Thank you very much indeed for listening today.